Okay, before we get into specific areas, I just want to point out a few things about performance optimization. First and foremost, my favorite quote is premature optimization is the root of all evils. I've seen developers messing up with the code and making it really ugly and unmaintainable, and they argue that this is for performance optimization. And in most cases, most of these people have not profiled the application and have no clue of performance bottlenecks. So don't sacrifice the maintainability of your code to performance optimization. Optimize only when you need to. Otherwise, you increase the development and maintenance cost without gaining anything. So one more time, I want you to remember this for the rest of your life, even if you're going to live forever. Premature optimization is the root of what? All evils. Okay, so you profile your application and you observe some performance problems in some areas. How can you solve them? Well, performance optimization is a very broad area and there's no magic fix for it. As a metaphor, think of infections. We don't have a magic pill that treats all infections in the world. We have different types of antibiotics, and each type can treat certain kinds of infections. Performance optimization in software is similar. You could have performance problems for a number of reasons, and unfortunately, I can't point out all the possible reasons out there. But I'm going to share with you a few key areas based on my experience. And this is not a complete list by any means. Now, in regards to web applications, most web applications follow a 3-tier architecture. What is a tier? It's where your code runs. So we have data tier, which is where our database and queries reside. We have application or middle tier, which is where we have a web server hosting our application. And we have client tier, which is the client's computer, and here we have the front end of our application running in a browser. Generally speaking, most of the performance bottlenecks are in the data tier. So optimizing performance at this level will have the most gain. And as we move towards the client tier, our optimizations will have less observable result. Note the word observable. This is the key here that a lot of developers don't take into account. They spend a lot of time on various kinds of optimizations, and they feel proud that they have reduced the execution time of some activity from 50 milliseconds to 20 milliseconds, even under load. Yes, in theory, there is 250% improvement here. But is this really observable to the end user? Does this really value the business? Probably not. In contrast, optimizing your database and its queries can reduce the response time of your application from 5 seconds to half a second. Is this observable? Absolutely. So just to clarify, I'm not saying we should not spend any time optimizing the application or client tiers. I'm saying optimizing performance problems in data tier will have the most gain compared to optimizations in application or client tiers. Here's a real-world example. A while ago, I wrote an article on my blog showing a few tips for C# developers to write cleaner code, and in that article, I explained that by convention, we do the validation in our methods first. So it's cleaner to have these if statements on the top to validate the arguments and throw an exception. Then in the comment section, someone argued that no, we should reverse these if-else blocks for optimization reasons, and he tried to explain how CLR works, blah blah blah. Now honestly, I don't know whether his explanations were technically right or wrong, but let's assume he was right. First of all, this is a perfect example of premature optimization, because his argument was not based on profiling the application's performance. It was purely based on theory. Plus, how much performance do you think we would gain by swapping these if and else blocks? So before teaching you a few techniques to optimize the performance of your applications, here are a few rules of thumb I want you to accept. First, do not sacrifice the maintainability of your code for premature optimization. Second, be realistic and think like an engineer, not a computer. And third, be pragmatic and ensure that your efforts in performance optimization have observable results and give value to the users and the business. If not, you're wasting your time and your employer's money. Okay, from the next lecture throughout the rest of this section, I'm going to touch on various elements in each of these tiers, starting from the data tier.